Welcome to Financial Health Channel.
The digitization of our economy strengthens the systems set up and their perpetuation. The masters, heirs of these systems, expect their slaves, the disinherited, to continue to deny themselves their freedom. However, social pain comes to remind them that they are of the world. This narrative attempts to illustrate how the master's fear invites freedom to come forward to finally question their inheritance. I look at the faded fan whose petals hang from the ceiling, bent by the dust. Our employer has declared an electrical drought. The new owner of the company, a financial conglomerate, squeezes our company from every pore to achieve ever juicier profits. The telephone bell rings. I answer it in an almost inaudible voice due to my dry throat. My colleague lets me know that my 1 o'clock appointment has just arrived. I am looking at my watch. He is exactly on time. I tell him to send him to me. As soon as I hung up the phone, someone knocked on my door. "Come on in." The door opens. I get up to greet my visitor. "Come, sit down." We sit. He is in his 20s, of average height. His short, thick, black hair rests high on a clear, anxious forehead. His thick, arched eyebrows reinforce the angular structure of his face. High and protruding cheekbones above which a dark and keen gaze observes me from the depths of its orbital caverns. His olive cheek skin is stretched over bulging muscles. The edge of his nose highlights the symmetry of his features. A thin, tapered mouth. A pointed chin that marks the balance achieved by his pierced ears, embellished with a brilliant. He is sitting straight in the chair. He wears a white cotton shirt with long sleeves and an open collar. He has black pants held up by a belt that appears to double around his waist. The bottom of the pants covers black tennis shoes with seams accentuated with dust. He holds between his long, bony fingers a smartphone whose screen is broken in several places. I finished looking at his application. I lean forward. "Fitiendo, do you have experience as a machinist?" In a broken language, he tells me yes. "Where are you from?" "From Nicaragua." "How long have you been here?" "Just arriving, 2 months." "Can you read French?" "Yes." "Do you know what position you are applying for?" "Machinist." "Are you familiar with machines for making metal parts?" "Yes." "Where did you learn it?" "My country, me machinist on shipyard." "How many years did you work there?" "A long time." "Yes, how many years?" 12-15 years. "Okay, come with me, I will show you our workshops." We are getting up. We start walking through the premises. I present it to colleagues. Some speak the same language. He comes alive, his face lights up. I'm glad to see him more at ease. We continue our way. We arrive at the workshop. I give him a helmet, goggles and headphones for his ears. We enter a mechanical cacophony. I take him to see the foreman. Along the way he stops at several machines, intrigued and excited, asking the operators questions. They talk to each other like experts. I am encouraged by his interaction and his curiosity. I present him to the foreman Isidro. What luck! They come from the same country. Out of courtesy, Isidro continues to speak to him in French. I tell them to continue the conversation in their mother tongue. Their exchange takes off in a sprint. At the end of their exchange, Isidro tells me that he is impatient to have Fitiendo with him at the workshop. I am heartened by his enthusiasm. I tell them that I will finish hiring Fitiendo as soon as possible. They say goodbye. I say to Fitiendo, "Come on, we're going back to my office and we will fill out some forms." "Yes, can't wait to start." We leave the workshop, and we get rid of our equipment. Along the way, I point out to him that he has golden hands. He smiles. "I lucky, take with me what I know." The electric drought of earlier comes back to blow on my enthusiasm, leading me to think that the golden hand of the worker is amputated by the digitization of the economy and replaced by the speculative claw of big capital. It subjects the employee. It keeps him in a tense flux, in alienation from his work. Suddenly, we are at the door of my office. My reflection has already dissolved in the lock of the door. We sit. I ask Fitiendo for his documents to fill in the forms. I review his documents with him. I make him sign on the electronic tablet all the contracts adhering to the regulations of his work. I save all his documents. "All right, now let's review your schedules. We need qualified personnel, like you. We have a lot of orders to fulfill. We can offer you full-time employment, 40 hours a week with compulsory overtime periods." Fitiendo looks at me a little embarrassed. "Thank you for the offer, but he told me that I can choose a la carte hours." "Yes, it's true. Just to be sure you understood correctly, our company offers 3 different categories: full-time with benefits, part-time without benefits, and a la carte without benefits, which requires at least 8 hours of work in the week, but your hourly rate will be higher than full-time." "Is that what you're talking about?" "Yes, that's it." "Well, fine, if that's your choice." As he uses his phone to translate some of the paragraphs, to be able to read them, I drift off on the dry air of the company's budget aridity. These new generations have adapted to their amputation. Big capital has cut too deep. Their financial management geniuses did not weight properly their decision because of their blind belief in everything digital. A well-founded belief, reinforced by the increase in the share of digital wealth creation. Financial products, the blockchain, cryptos, and the digitization of real economic activities. For real estate, they tried to make people believe that it could be as flexible, liquid as stocks, bonds. Businesses become appendages of a conglomerate of investments funds. The electronic tentacles of their servers feed on data and regurgitate directives to their employees, reduced to appendages of their profit at all costs algorithms. This masquerade will end when this digital faith without morals burns its believers on the pyre of its vanity. All it takes is a spark to engulf this pile of dry, crunchy logs. Sooner or later, high interest rates and reduced credit from banks will make it impossible to refinance the debts of zombie companies, commercial real estate, residential real estate investment companies, and will accelerate the debt-destructive power of the production capacity of companies because of the reduction of the demand for their products. I finished. His refreshing voice immediately evaporates in the heat of the torch ready to ignite our granular existence in these networked systems. "Ah well, let me give you the phone numbers, websites you'll need to finish registering for your pay and schedules." "Thanks. You are welcome. I'll take you to the uniform department. They will give you your equipment and the locker to put your personal belongings in." I escort him to the entrance of the department. "Go through this door, go to the end of the hall, and it is the first door on the right." "Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you. I'm sure you'll enjoy working here." He goes through the door. I watch him go down the hall. I turn away and walk the dusty path of the dehumanization of work. Fitiendo will complete his hiring process through websites, applications, automatic telephone lines. Our investor has closed the human resources department. This has created such problems that they send out a guide once a week to help the employees. We no longer know who we work for. The masters hide in the anonymity of the conglomerates. They try to dissolve their fearful dependence on their slaves by diluting the accumulated hours of experience among more workers than necessary. This fear on the part of the masters led to an unexpected transformation. Yes, I will need to hire 4 workers like Fitiendo for a full-time position. It is a long-term loss for the accumulation of knowledge for the company. But young people today are taking à la carte schedules for a completely different reason than that of the digital octopus. They choose this option to be able to have a more balanced family, social and professional life than that of their elders. We have been obsessed with consuming happiness to finally give up pain, our freedom. Young people have a sense of their freedom that may allow them to avoid our miserable happiness. Here, speaking of misery, I have a meeting with the director. I go through the cafeteria. A few employees take their break. Their low-voiced conversation does not replace the conviviality, the energy of the casual conversations of the inhabitants of the neighborhood who came to have their meal here. This connective river dried up after investor algorithms determined that the human connection was worth less than the electronic one for profit. The rays of light filtered by the blinds illuminate the dust choking my steps. Without echo, I head for the meeting room. The door is open. The manager, Mr. Martin, is on the phone, seated at one end of the table. A tablet is erected as an outpost of his marching orders. He looks at me and waves, "Just a minute." I sit down in one of the armchairs stuffed with the nostalgia of the green seasons. What a contrast! This meeting room had been furnished, arranged to accommodate dynamic, lively, sometimes stormy and long meetings. It was a space for exchanges, meetings, negotiations. The cupboards, the shelves, the office equipment arranged around the room are all 2 large armors in which the head of the director would not exceed the top of the cuirass of the chest. His body would float in the armor, prisoner of the motionless heaviness of the steel. He fidgets on the phone, speaking in a higher voice to his interlocutor, betraying both his very young age and his lack of experience. He was recruited out of a university in Milwaukee for the sciences, a wizard of management programs. His face is round and milky. His nose is small and round. His cheekbones turn scarlet, varying in intensity with his voice. His hair is a red down. His iron glasses contrast with the gelatinous softness of his flesh. His pale pink lips are abnormally large like the rest of his body. He wears a short-sleeved white textile shirt, a black, narrow tie, khaki pants, and black shoes housing black socks. He is a utility uniform. He is uniformity applied without deviations. He is the executor of his master's digital orthodoxy. Ah, he finished his conversation. How's it going? Well, we just hired a new machinist. He chose à la carte schedules. All right. We are perfectly aligned with the guidelines of the program put in place by corporate. We are on the way to achieving all the goals set. And he types while he chats with his tablet. I watch him come to life, excited by the abdication of his responsibility. He doesn't have to choose, just obey. Its short-term profit is the negation of his finitude. He lives by proxy. He does not build himself up. He has the essence of a thing. He denies himself the possibility of being a consciousness by existence. One day, when he faces his finitude, I hope he will be able to take responsibility for the choices that were not his and to make it his personal project that he had refused to himself. Finally, the cries of his freedom taken away by the forces of desire tell me that the meeting is coming to an end. How are you doing with the orders? What's up? No problems with suppliers? No, besides, I have to send the orders for the quarter. Great, let's go. I get up. The director has already been reabsorbed by his management networks. With reverence for the suspended time, I put the chair back in place with his brothers in arms. See you later. I open the door to my office. I leave it open. I turn on my computer and log into my account. I enter the management program. Investors have already negotiated rates with suppliers in advance. I no longer have the opportunity to discover local businesses with better products. The efficiency linked to mediocrity undermines from the inside any construction of our clientele, of our future demand. I can see that the prices are going up less rapidly than before. It helps. But this means a decrease in demand. We will soon have more difficulty finding markets for our products. Sooner or later, the weight of debt that investors have used to acquire our company will outweigh the profits they are making. They will resell to another investor, or worse, they will tear us apart. And this is not specific to our company. In the industrial park where we are, I noticed that several office buildings were empty or partially empty. When I recently spoke to the manager of one of the buildings, in the parking lot, he explained to me that the owners would have difficulty refinancing their mortgages. They had bought it with a low-interest loan. But with fewer tenants, rental income has gone down, and this has affected the value of the building. The bank will ask the owners for a contribution of capital to be able to rebalance the amount of the loan in relation to the value of the building. I told him that if the amount of capital was too large, the owners might give the key of the building to the bank. He looked at me in dismay. The silence of the empty offices came to haunt him, to take him to a bygone past. Suddenly, above our heads, a raven passed, sneering, scattering the specters of its eternal wings. I smiled and patted the manager's shoulder, saying, "That's your answer." He looked at me in disbelief and left, dazed by the long sleep from which he had just woken. Smiling at the memory of this conversation, I look out the window of my office. I notice a long queue in front of the bank, on the other side of the street. Another bank whose depositors withdraw their money. This multicolored tale is the boa constrictor of commercial real estate that will inevitably stifle not only banks overexposed to commercial mortgages, but also the rest of the world. The economy will no longer receive the vital flow of liquidity created by these same banks. The boa moves slowly, sliding on its colored rings. I jump when someone knocks on my door. Hi. Hey, how are you, Fredo? I'm fine, can I talk to you? Yes. He closes the door. It must be serious. What is happening? Has anyone been injured in the department? There is a complaint from one of the team members? He laughs nervously. No, none of that. Oh, I am reassured. How can I help you? He remains silent, head down, body forward, hands crossed between his knees, looking at the tips of his shoes. Tell me what is happening. Come on. We've known each other too long. What's bothering you? He takes a deep breath to exhale a sigh in apnea. Eventually, air bubbles burst, freeing his voice. I need to borrow money. He still doesn't look at me. Do you want a coffee, some water? A coffee, yes, thank you. I'm getting up. I put 2 white cups with their saucer on the desk. A teaspoon of instant coffee at the bottom of each cup. The water is already hot. I pour it into the cups. The aromatic vapors comfort the tension separating us. I stir the spoon to finish dissolving the grains of the cafe. I put the spoon with a slight clink of porcelain on my saucer. I take the other cup and give it to him. He takes it and looks at me, raising his eyebrows. I go to sit down. How are the children? Good. And how is Mary Ann? Good. I smile at him, so everything is fine. He smiled at me, yeah, except I temporarily need money to make ends meet, until my next payday. How much do you need? 500. 500? Yes, I have already maxed out my credit cards. They have also reduced or cut my lines of credit. We have already exhausted our saving for the past 6 months. We thought that Mary Ann would be able to find another job fairly quickly, but that was not the case. The cost of living is much more expensive. Yes, you are quite right. I myself am surprised by the acceleration of our impoverishment. In the coming year, owning a car will be a luxury. Manufacturers have benefited over the past 3 years from the systematic increase in their price. And now they are colluding to limit their production in order to maintain their profit margin. The new houses are going to be smaller. Yeah, we're down to having a line of credit with the grocery store, buy now, pay later. It is very difficult. Can I write you a check? You can drop it off tomorrow, no worries. I detach the check and give it to him. He takes it, folds it up and puts it in his wallet. Thank you, I will reimburse you on my next payday. I know. It is really a great help that you give us. No worries, you would have done the same for us. Alright, I have to go home. Say hello to Mary Ann and the kids for us. We are getting up. After a handshake and a good hug, he leaves the office. I clean the cups and put them away. I shut down the computer and put the desk in order. As I turn off the light, I stand on the doorstep to savor the cool breeze blowing across the arid dust of forgotten beings. Thanks, Fredo. I head for the exit door. The parking lot is almost empty. I cross several parking spaces passing through the solid white lines. I walk at odds with the established and well-organized system of managing our car parks. A system connected to other systems, education, justice, police, companies, public and private administration, associations, army, government, social networks, health. All this is there to categorize us, to give us a label. This interaction is constantly tested. I arrive at my car. I open the door and sit behind the wheel. I start and drive home. Always the same route, back and forth. Our interaction is always the same since we learn how to communicate with all these network systems that work with precise rules. Well-oiled cogs, some of which are pushed by ourselves. We are Sisypheans, pushing the same cogs day after day, and it seems to be endless. Then, one day, it stops. Some say we disappear into nothingness. This thought could be depressing if we refused our finitude. But the mere fact of knowing, of recognizing one's finitude, allows one to free oneself, to live to the best of what one can be. Big Capital is pushing digitization for more control through alienation from work and profits. But freedom appeared in the space between the alienation from work and the employees who as a conscience have a personal project that runs counter to the network systems of big business and government. This freedom born of pain, as when Rome had brought Paul into its midst claiming his Roman citizenship to be judged in Rome, has already begun to convert, to reprogram these network systems. We are going to know immense pain which will perhaps allow us to be free to be happy before we disappear like any other species before us.